Lesson 43, sine, cosine, tangent, and inverse functions. Sine, cosine, and tangent all deal with right angles in a triangle. So we're going to be dealing with right triangles. In a right triangle, the angle opposite the right angle, or the long slanted side of the triangle, is called the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is the side opposite the right angle. The sine, cosine, and tangent functions all deal in relation to the hypotenuse. So let's talk about the sine first of all. If we're talking about the sine function, this is the little SIN on your scientific calculator. And we're talking about whatever angle we're looking for. So, for example, in this triangle, we'll do it based on this angle X. If we're looking for angle X, it's the opposite side over the hypotenuse. So it's the opposite over the hypotenuse. If we're talking about the cosine, this is the cos, C-O-S function. That's the adjacent, or the side that goes right next to it. Over the hypotenuse. And if we're talking about the tangent function, this is tan on your calculator. It's the opposite side over the adjacent side. A lot of people try to remember sine, cosine, and tangent using the mnemonic or the acronym SOHCAHTOA. Sine is the opposite over the hypotenuse. Cosine is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. And tangent is the opposite over adjacent. SOHCAHTOA. So that's a way that you could remember sine, cosine, and tangent. We're going to do a few examples, and then I'm going to have you do some on your own. Example 1. We're going to find the sine of angle A. Okay, this is a right triangle. The hypotenuse is 7. One side is 4, and the other side is 5.74. Angle A is the angle in the bottom right-hand corner. Now, we're finding the sine of angle A, and it was, as we just saw in the previous slide, sine is the opposite over the hypotenuse. Okay, so sine is the opposite over the hypotenuse. Now, if we're to look at angle A, the side opposite from angle A, side opposite that angle, is the side 4. So we have 4 over the hypotenuse. Now, the hypotenuse is always opposite this right angle. Okay, so the hypotenuse is 7. So the sine is 4/7. Now, what we're going to do in order to solve is to go ahead and divide this out. So let's pull up our calculator. And we're going to do 4 divided by 7, which is 0.57, and it goes on. We're going to round this to 2 decimal places. So the sine of A is going to be equal to 0.57, and that is the final solution. Let's look at another example. Example number 2. We're going to find the cosine of angle B. Again, we're dealing with a right triangle. The bottom is 7, the side is 5. The hypotenuse is 8.6, and angle B is in the bottom right-hand corner. We're finding the cosine of angle B. Now, if we will recall, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. Now, we're dealing with angle B. So we want to look and see what side is adjacent to angle B. The adjacent side is the side down here, 7. So adjacent is 7 over the hypotenuse. And remember, the hypotenuse is always opposite the right angle, so the hypotenuse is 8.6. So the cosine is 7 divided by 8.6. Again, we're going to pull out our calculator. We want to find a solution rounded to 2 decimal points. So 7 divided by 8.6 is equal to 0.8139. We're going to round to 2 decimal places. So the cosine of B is equal to 0.81. That is the final solution. Let's do one more example. Example 3, we're finding the tangent of angle C. This side is 6, the bottom is 8, hypotenuse is 10, C is again in the bottom right hand corner. We're finding tangent. And if we recall from the very first slide, tangent is the opposite over the adjacent. So if we're looking at angle C, the opposite side from angle C is 6, and the adjacent side is 8. So the tangent of C is 6 over 8. And go ahead and solve it out on our calculator. 6 divided by 8 is 0.75. So the tangent of C is 0.75. On this next slide, there are 3 examples. I want you to find the sine of angle C, the cosine of angle D, and the tangent of angle E. Round each answer to 2 decimal places, and we will check these when we come into class tomorrow. Go ahead and pause the video as you work out these problems.